Good morning, Patriots, and happy Friday. Let's take a look, see who's in this morning. Good morning, guys. I see y'all there. All right. So I hope y'all are doing very well. I do have a very sad announcement. There was a tragedy this morning. I woke up and I found that there was no more coffee. That's right. That's a bad morning. I'm out of coffee. So I'm surviving off of some Lady Grey tea. It's fine. It will do. But when I'm done with this, you better believe I'll be getting some more coffee. So again, good morning, Patriots. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. Let's get this started. So it's been a pretty interesting couple weeks when it comes to the courts. Am I right? Whew. Boy, howdy. So I don't know if y'all saw that ludicrous display last night, that dumpster fire of a State of the Union, if you could call it that, where the resident tried speaking, tried giving out his words to the people. But yeah, it did not go so well. I can only tolerate just a little bit before I had to switch off. But Patriots, today, our main focus is the courts, judges, the judicial system, all of that. Now, I got this great comment here real quick. I'm going to show this. So that topic, Kangaroo Court, we know what that looks like. We know what that is. Sadly, all too well. I'd say since 2020, you've seen more kangaroo courts left and right. And that is actually a great comment to start the day with. Do we need to have courts? Do we need to have a judicial system where people come before one person or a group of people, make their cases, and those people decide what will happen next? Now, obviously, I'm not counting the juries. Juries are also very important too. But the point is, do we need to have a court system, a judicial branch? My answer is yes. I'm curious to see what y'all think. But yeah, basically, when I was a teacher and I taught government, that was a course I think I would never enjoy teaching, but I ended up loving it. But in that course, I taught my students the difference between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. And the one thing that a lot of my students never really understood going into it was the law. Every branch does their own thing with the law. And this is really important. Okay. The executive branch enforces the law. That's their job. Their job is to enforce the law. The legislative branch, they make the law. That branch is also very important because they're supposed to represent the people and they make the law, whether it be at the federal level or the state level. But then the judicial branch, what's their role? What do? They interpret the law. That's the main takeaway. Good morning, AC Cruz. Yeah, so the judicial branch, whether it be the federal level, the state level, even at the small local level, their job is not to make law. Their job is not to enforce the law. Their job is to interpret the law. Interpret what that law actually says, and then make a ruling or have the jury make a ruling. That's the key thing we got to start with today. Now, courts can make good decisions, such as the Supreme Court telling the whole nation, no, Trump cannot be removed from the ballots. That was a huge victory. Even the left-leaning judges, it was 9-0, Patriots. That was insane. Even the left judges were saying, y'all can't do that. You can't just remove a presidential candidate from the ballot. That's not going to happen. But then there are also court decisions that are not so good. I don't know if y'all are tracking what's going on down here in Texas, but right now, the state is fighting against the federal government on the topic of state sovereignty. can Texas, this is going to sound horribly stupid, but can Texas enforce their own laws? Can Texas enforce federal law? Is Texas able to arrest people who are breaking the law? You would think, well, obviously, yeah, you would think that could be okay. But when it comes to the border, oh, no, 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 no. When it comes to the border, the federal government was like, Texas, no, 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 you can't enforce the law. No, you can't arrest people who are crossing the border illegally. No, you can't do that. That's for the Border Patrol to do. So that whole saga is very tenuous. Or a lower level federal court judge ruled that Texas cannot do that. That rule that duty falls to the Border Patrol only. But then an appeals court said, hold on a second. Texas appealed it, so it went up the next level. And now the Supreme Court made a temporary decision. So right now, when it comes to Texas versus the Biden administration, the Supreme Court issued a temporary stay. So if the Supreme Court does not take this case by March 13th, I believe, the new Texas law, which will give Texas authorities the right to arrest people crossing the border illegally, if the Supreme Court does not end up taking that case, then Texas can start doing that by March 13th. If the Supreme Court does take that case, that'll be the next big thing. Because if that does happen, the debate will be this: the federal government versus state sovereignty. If the federal government refuses to enforce federal law, can the state step in and say, okay, we'll handle it? Again, that's been an ongoing thing Texas has been dealing with since, since 2021, really. So, yeah, when it comes to this right here, I do agree. I think he's doing a great job. I don't think he's perfect. He obviously has his flaws, but I do respect the fact that, you know, you have governors, not just Governor Abbott, who are not bending the knee, who are fighting back. And that's what really matters to me. So, as we've seen, the judicial system makes good decisions and bad decisions, things that we do and don't like. But where did that all come from? That's our goal today, is to look at the origin of the judicial system, why it exists, and then more importantly, the biblical connection to this role. So I'm sure y'all have grown up with the classic scenes of Judge Judy during those daytime TV shows. And you've also seen real world courtroom settings in our modern day. So where it came from was way back when, during ancient Mesopotamia. You had the first documented laws, which was the Code of Hammurabi. So the Code of Hammurabi was a extremely long listing of laws and rules that people had to follow in order to have a functioning society. And if you broke those laws, then the judges would have to determine what the ruling is. And so over time, that evolved to where we're at today. So again, the purpose of a judge is not to make law. It's not to enforce the law. It's to interpret the law. So if people come into their courtroom, they hear the arguments, they hear what's going on, and they look at what the law actually says, not what they want it to say. And that's where it gets kind of tricky, because we are all imperfect people. We are flawed, broken human beings. Yet here you are in this position of power. You have to make a decision that is going to impact people for the rest of their lives. So you have to be very careful with that, don't you? You cannot bring in your personal feelings, and you cannot be impartial. I'm sorry, you cannot be partial. You have to be impartial. You have to make these decisions, so you have to do it very carefully. That's why a lot of judges issue, their reasoning, or they write about the ruling, and usually it's like 50 to 100-page explanation as far as why they made their ruling. But let's get to the meat of all this. Where did judges come from and why they should exist in today's day and age? So let me share my screen here real quick, Patriots. And let's look at the biblical connection of judges. So the best place I think is a good start is in Exodus. So I'm using this website, Bible Gateway. It's really good. And I'm looking at a little overview of the book of Exodus. Obviously, you can see Moses, Egypt, leading the people out of Egypt. But once he led them out of Egypt, things started to happen. People started to have problems because that's what happens when you have people together, they start having issues. And so here, we're going to focus on this part where Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, offers counsel, judicial counsel. Now, I'm not going to read this word for word. If you want to read it, you can. But basically, this is a part in Exodus where a lot of people are having issues and they're coming to Moses and saying, Moses, please help solve these issues. This person stole my goat, or I haven't eaten 5 days and that person stole my bread, or whatever, it's whatever issues there are. And it got to a point where Moses was getting exhausted. Moses was like, I can't handle all this. I can't just listen to everyone's issues and make decisions. I have to be able to still serve God, still lead y'all, and be a judge. And so Jethro stepped in and said, hey, man, and this is a very paraphrased version, okay? Jethro stepped in and said, hey, man, listen, you can't do this all on your own. You need to be able to create a system, a judicial system, where you can still be in charge of like the big issues, but you need to be able to delegate the smaller issues to other people who are experienced. And this leads us into the modern day connection. Notice today we have the Supreme Court, right, which is the highest court in the land. But then you have lower level courts, state courts, municipal courts, from the very bottom up to the very top. One person can't do all this by themselves, obviously. That makes complete sense to us today. But this all started all the way back here. And so Moses took Jethro's advice and he started choosing people to represent this new judicial system. But the next question is, who should be a good judge? What are the qualifications to be a good judge? So real quick in the chat, if y'all want to type in what you think makes a good judge, go put that in there. Again, I have my own thoughts based off my experiences. We'll take a look at what scripture says. But yeah, what makes a good judge? Let's take a look here. Oh, here we go. So here, let me go. I think that's it. All right, here we go. Sorry. All right, so this is in Deuteronomy 16:19. So one major factor for being a good judge is you have to be able to be impartial. Okay, so I'll read this part right here. You shall not distort justice. You shall not show partiality. And you shall not accept a bribe, because a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and distorts the words of the righteous. So, give me your thoughts, Patriots. What do you think about that? Just get right here. Knowledge and honesty. Okay. Here's another good one. Ethics, honesty, unbiased. Very good. And this is something that seems to be obvious. You would think this should be a basic requirement for all judges. Sadly, I'm sure we've all seen judges that have abused that, who are not impartial, especially the judge in New York that we've seen. That judge, was it Ingeron, whatever the hell his name is? He was clearly corrupt. No laws were actually broken, and yet President Trump was still expected to pay a huge fine for not committing any law, for not committing any wrongdoings. But yeah, that's the first big thing. You have to be impartial. You have to be able to take your personal feelings aside, look at what the law actually says, interpret it, and then make a ruling. But even though all judges need to be able to be unbiased, fair, honest, ethical, all those things, the most important thing all judges must have is fear. Now, that sounds kind of weird first, but fear of the Lord. Here in Proverbs 9:10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. Now, that's really important. Let's break this down, patriots. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Can you seriously call yourself a judge if you are not wise? And how can you have wisdom if you do not have fear? Fear of the one true king. Now, this is really important because when Moses was trying to choose people to be judges to help him, run the chosen people, you have to be able to find someone who has that fear. If someone walks around in life with a level of pride that just makes their head so big they think they're the best, are they really going to be a good judge? No, in fact, that's one of the things that God hates the most, according to Solomon. God hates those who are prideful. He hates those who go out of their way to cause strife. He hates those who steal, who hurt the innocent. A long list, but the number one thing is pride. And so, if you do not fear your higher power, your God, then how the heck can you be a good judge? How can you show wisdom? Now, once you have that fear, then you go into the other factors. Are they unbiased? Right? If your mother is one of the people on trial, can you really give a good ruling? I'm not sure back then. I'm not sure if you'd be able to remove yourself from that, for conflict of interest. I don't know if that was even a thing back then. Maybe it was. I don't know. But the point is, you have to be able to take your personal things aside and look at the facts. Okay. Now, this brings me into another case going on right now with Fannie Willis. Oh, I'm sure you guys have heard all about that as well. So Fannie Willis is that corrupt DA in Georgia, and she tried basically ruining Trump. But then, of course, people found out. Wait a second, Fannie, you're not beyond reproach. You're pretty corrupt, and there's evidence of you doing pretty horrible things that throw this whole case out of the water. And so she's on trial for having um, unprofessional relationships with people in her inner circle, specifically, I can't remember his name, but he what's the name? Nathan Wade. Sorry, my wife helped me out there. So Nathan Wade. So basically, she's on trial because she had an affair with Nathan Wade long before she put him in charge of prosecuting Trump. Now, that's opened up a huge can of worms. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is the judge in this case is in a weird pickle because there has been evidence that has been shown that he had donated to Fannie Willis's campaigns long before. And if you watch some clips of the trial, you've seen him not be impartial. You've seen him treat other people differently when they're on the stand. And so now that people have started talking about it, you can watch him now, and he's trying to be careful. Because here's the thing: if you're a judge, and if the county DA, the person who's supposed to be in charge of enforcing the law, if your county DA is the one on the stand, and if you're the judge, well, that seems kind of weird. That seems a little odd. Exactly. Yeah, he's been between a rock and a hard place. If that judge does the right thing, and if he actually does look at the evidence and interpret what the law says and make the ruling, do the right thing, then you could very well see everything that the DA worked so hard to do crumble. You could see everything that the DA tried to build against Trump completely crumble. He could be the enemy of a lot of powerful people. But on the other hand, if he doesn't do the right thing, oh, sure, he'll be in the good graces of the DA. And sure, he might feel comfortable for a time. But then what happens? Every future case that that judge presides over will have that stain. And then you will have massive lawsuits coming because of that. Oh, there you go. So there's that right there. And that's another thing too. When it comes to finding people right to be a judge, who do you want? Do you want someone who will interpret the law, make rulings, and show a fear of God? Or do you want someone who just wants to be reelected? Big factor. That also applies to people in the legislative branch. To be honest with you, I honestly don't know. I don't know if he does. And to be fair, I'm sure there are good judges out there who do a decent job who are not professing Christians. But for us as believers, we have that higher standard. For us as believers, we look at the history. And for us who are intelligent, we also look at the money trail too. But for us as professing Christians, we look at the history, we look at the past to better understand what's happening right now. And even though there are some judges out there that aren't good, and even though you could very well see a kangaroo court, the truth of the matter still remains. You cannot have a functioning society without some type of judge, without some type of judicial system. Think about it. What if we just had the executive branch and the legislative branch? People can make laws. Cool. You'll be represented, and you'll have people enforcing the laws that were made. Cool. But then what happens? What happens then if you, the citizen, is slighted? What happens if someone gets killed? What happens if someone steals something? What happens if there's a divorce? What happens if anything in humanity goes awry? What do you do? Who do you go to? You can't go to the people making the laws because then they'll just make a law that supports you. Well, that's not fair. And you could go to the people that enforce the law because then they will enforce the law to take out your enemies, which is kind of what's happening right now. But the one thing that can prevent the executive branch from becoming fully tyrannical is the judicial branch. That's why you typically don't see the judicial branch getting involved with the political backstabbery that you see in the other two branches. That's typically why judges try to stay out of the spotlight. Again, I say typically and try because obviously there's exceptions, but that's why judges tend to take a step back, not get involved with the current goings on. Because your one job is to interpret the law. That's it. So, Patriots, let's end with this right here. At the end of the day, who's in charge? Not the president, clearly. It's not the people you chose to represent you in Congress. And it's not the judge. It's our true king. God's in charge. That's it. So, through the good days, through the bad days, no matter what's going on in your life, understand that if you feel small, that's okay. If you feel that fear of God, if you live your life knowing that, hey, I'll do the best I can, but I'm nothing. I'm puny compared to the one true king. If you live your life knowing that, then you're already a step above everyone else. Then you're already on the right path. And so, Patriots, I hope your week's been good. I know it's been crazy. Right now, when it comes to Texas, I'm not sure if you guys know, I write for a newsletter. and I'm in charge of writing for Texas news. So every day I produce a newsletter that shows what's going on in Texas. And let's see. Actually, I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat box. So if you guys are interested in signing up for my newsletter, it's called the Texas Flyover. And I'll put that right here. And it's free, super simple. It's to the point. It's not riddled with clickbait. It's not filled with garbage like that. It's to the point. There we go. So in the chat box, I just posted the link. So if you want to join the Texas Flyover, it's completely free. You can unsubscribe anytime you want to. But basically, yeah, my job is to look at the news every single day and write about what's happening in the Lone Star State. So hope you have a wonderful day, Patriots. It's great seeing y'all again. I know today was a little weird because Michael wasn't here. He's out traveling, and next week he should be with Jeff, I believe. But yeah, Patriots. So yeah, this is actually a job. This is my full-time job. Yeah, I write for a newsletter. It's based out of Colorado, and it's one of the few people in Colorado that's actually a conservative group of people. So yeah, have a wonderful day, Patriots. Great seeing y'all. We got a few minutes left. So this tea is fine, but it's not cutting it. Oh, in the chat box, real quick. How do y'all like your coffee? You prefer light roast, dark roast, espresso? Do not partake in coffee? If you want to put it in there, cool. If not, no worries. All right, there's also a national one called just the Flyover. All right, guys. Black and dark and nothing less. Absolutely. I like my goth water as dark as possible. My wife and I went on a cruise last year in April, and it was amazing. And the best part of the cruise was the coffee. Oh my gosh, Patriots. It was the free coffee we got in the morning, and it may not be everyone's cup of tea, no pun intended, but for me, the coffee we had in that cruise was like thick black sludge, and I loved it. Oh, so my wife likes this too. She's got to have flavor. She's got to have the sugar, the cream, all that. Me, I just want the void. I just want the darkness. That's it. All right, Patriots. Tell you what, we'll go ahead in for the day. Have a wonderful week, Patriots, and I will see y'all. I'll be seeing y'all a week after next. Yeah, but Michael should be on with Jeff next week. On that note, Patriots, have a wonderful day. Never surrender, never submit. Remember, the judicial system is not perfect, but it's definitely needed, and it comes directly from Scripture. And bottom line, you cannot be a good judge without fear of the Lord. Have a wonderful day, Patriots. Never surrender, never submit.